Welcome to another I Was Just Thinking. I'm Rudy Maxa. I'm a travel journalist, and I do this every week on Thursday, trying to find interesting people. Not trying, I'm succeeding, I think, find interesting people to talk to about travel. And I've got a couple guests coming up this week. The first one you see in the corner there is James Shillinglaw. I'll introduce you to him in just a moment. But thanks for coming in today. You know you can chat using that box on the right. James Shillinglaw is the founder and editor of Insider Travel Report. He has been covering the travel industry for decades. He's almost as old as I am. Not quite. And when I met him, he was writing a lot about cruises. He's a cruise expert. And, cruise ships keep pushing back their start dates for sailing. We're going to talk to him about that, how to shop wisely for a cruise, what he sees on the horizon for cruises. And then toward the end of the hour, we'll continue our traveling around the world to see how people in other countries are reacting to COVID-19 precautions being taken in their place, in their country, as well as how they think about Americans someday coming to visit their country. My guest lives on the Gold Coast of Australia. Her name is Anne-Maree Moon, and she's the head of tourism for the Brisbane Development Agency. She's a tourist expert as well, and we're going to ask her what's going on in Australia because last I heard, Australia said it's not going to open to visitors till the end of 2021. That's a long ways away. Meanwhile, we'll put up the social media slide. If you would like to watch any of our past I Was Just Thinking episodes, all you've got to do is go to YouTube and type in SavTrav49, and you'll see them. Or just type in my name, and I Was Just Thinking, and we've had some great guests on. By the way, if you hear or see something during the course of this hour that you would like to share with friends who aren't with us live now, this should be posted on YouTube in about 24 hours or so. And then you can refer folks to James and Anne-Maree. Okay, let's officially say hello to James Shillinglaw. James, nice to have you on the show. I haven't seen you in so long. It's nice. I haven't even seen you virtually in a long time.
So yeah, it's been a while. I know. We were hanging out on the rivers of Europe at one point, but it's been a few years.
Well, you were the first to sort of introduce me to river cruising. I was talking to Viking River Cruises about perhaps underwriting my public television show. They went with something else. It's very funny, James. I remember going to pitch them in their LA office, and they said, "Well, come to Amsterdam, where we're going to be inaugurating some new vessels, et cetera." And they said, "I think we're already doing some public television show called Downtown Abbey or something." And it hadn't started airing yet, so I said, "I've never heard of it, Downtown Abbey. Don't know what it is, but you ought to consider me." Anyway, so I went to meet with all their execs there, and James was there covering it, and there were other vessels from other companies there, and he took me by the arm and we went on. I remember we went to a
Uniworld, yeah.
Uniworld one, which was quite fancy, and obviously we saw the Viking, and then we went to Amsterdam, and he reminded me today, watch me get a haircut. That doesn't take long, me getting a haircut, so I don't feel too badly about it. At any rate, he's been my go-to guy when I've written about cruises. And before we get specific about how to find deals, James, and what the realities of the cruise industry are right now, well, that's what I want to begin with, actually. What now are the realities of when lines are going to start ships cruising in the water again?
Well, it's been delayed repeatedly. The Centers for Disease Control had issued a no-sail order in March, and they have kept renewing that order for twice already. And currently, that no-sail order is going to end on October 31st. We don't know whether they'll renew it or whether they'll just let it expire. That means no ships can sail out of U.S. ports. I forget the capacity, but it's about 1,000, 1,500, and so that's prevented most U.S. cruise lines from sailing. Now, that said, most U.S. cruise lines and the members of the CLIA, the Cruise Lines International Association, had already agreed to delay cruising until November 30th, and so that's where we stand now. And a lot of them are individually saying they're not going to sail until 2021. So yeah, it's going to be hard to find a cruise you can get on. There are several that are going to be probably launching. I'm actually going on a cruise that is not governed by these rules. At least I hope I am. A nice cruise line called Sea Dream, and they've invited me to go on in late November, early December, and they're going out of Barbados, but they're only 100 passengers. So it's going to be hard to find a cruise for a little while, and I think those who really want to cruise are going to book it. These dates keep on getting set back, and we can talk in a second about why. But what's happening is all the cruise lines are really going out of their way to improve health and safety standards. All of the CLIA member lines have guaranteed 100% COVID tests for all passengers and crew before you get on board. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's just we're all kind of waiting, chomping at the bit to get back to the sea. I don't think people who haven't cruised before are going to be a little more worried about this. But people who have cruised are desperate to get back and start sailing again.
But are they taking bookings for 2021?
Of course. In fact, what's happened is a lot of the cruise lines who's had canceled cruises, and they gave passengers what they call as a future cruise credit, and that was worth 125% of the value of whatever they paid. So what's happened is that travel advisors, who are really the ones that book most cruises, have been very busy rebooking cruises into 2021 for those cruises canceled in 2020. So you're going to have a problem next year too, because all the cruises that were canceled from March all the way up through the end of this year, many passengers are going to try to get on for next year. So they're going to use this cruise credit, and they'll try to get on. So it's going to be very difficult, actually. So yes, they're taking new bookings, and they're already filling up with all of these canceled and rebooked cruises that people. There is some of the big lines, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, and then Carnival has its own thing. They all have engaged experts in health and COVID and all that to really come up with the new protocols. And in fact, the Royal Caribbean, Norwegian is called, there's a healthy sail panel that's all a bunch of doctors and health experts that created these new protocols. And one of the protocols is more limited capacity. That's one. The COVID testing, which was a big one. Nobody does that. You don't do that at hotels. You don't even do that on airlines, right? So they're going to have 100% COVID testing. On board, we'll have all of the different very, very stringent cleaning standards, which already was. The cruise lines already were really good at doing this because, if you recall, the last virus problem they had is something called norovirus.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons why the CDC is really focused on cruise lines more than any other form of travel. And that's been a challenge, too, because the CDC sometimes seems to be using some statistics that don't seem right to a lot of us who go on cruises and also a lot of the cruise lines. So yes, they're booking into 2021, and it's going to be hard to find some cruises. But that said, I would tell everyone who's listening, go to their travel advisor and say, look, I want to go next year, and tell them what you want to do. And we're talking ocean, really. Rivers is a different story, and we can talk about that if you'd like. But
let's get to rivers in a minute. But let me ask you, are they taking bookings for 2022?
Yes, they are. Indeed, the lines have started putting together their schedules and itineraries, not just to 2022, they're starting for 2023. Basically, they've said, 2020 was a lost cause, so now we're going to just go out the next 2 years, and you can book a cruise well into 2023. It's the earliest that we have ever seen that kind of booking. And, they want to try to get it all back. And the only way they can do it is start to sell stuff that ordinarily you'd have to wait till the end of next year for 2023.
Do you get an impression that it might be wise to buy 2022 price wise? Are they giving any?
I'm not sure. I'm not seeing a lot of deals per se, at least not yet.
Right.
There is a theory that, because of all the future cruise credits that are going to populate the vessels in 2021, that there's going to not really be a need to do some discounting. But, in cruising, there's always a bit of discounting going on. So, we'll have to see what demand looks like. So far, they're not in the water, so they haven't begun the deals. I haven't seen any deals right now. Cruising is a great value. So I'm sure that you can get a decent price now, but it's not going to be, a fire sale or anything like that.
Right. Let me just interrupt our flow of conversation here to say that Dennis just asked me, where is the wine? I used to open the show with wine. And James, and I just got a text saying, "Where's the wine presentation? It was very informative and enjoyable." Okay, I'm going to bring back the wine. I did get a very harsh email from a woman saying, "I tune in to talk about travel. I don't care about you tasting wine," but I tried to talk about where the wine came from, the region, how easy it is to visit wineries there or not. So yes, I'm going to bring back the wine. I'll probably do it maybe 2 or 3 times in a month. I will bring back the wine. Okay.
I have some bourbon here if you'd like. It's the bar's right here. So.
I got wine. In fact, should I tell my favorite casino joke? Nah, I won't tell. No, I've got wine. It's not a problem of having it. It's just I thought I got this very harsh email like, "Oh, why should I watch this podcast? You mess around with wine." And I thought, oh, maybe everybody feels that way. But I know we've gotten 16 or 17 emails saying we enjoyed the wine part. So I enjoyed it too. I enjoy wine at 2 p.m. Central. Okay, so let's talk a little about river cruising. River cruising, of course, has been the rage for years now. I know I'm actually looking. By the way, my background looks very different if you're a regular viewer. It's because I changed apartments. I'm still moving into a new apartment in my same building, but I now have a much better view of the Mississippi River. I'm looking at it right outside my right side window. And pretty soon, Viking is going to have river cruises on the Mississippi River, which I never thought I'd see that day come. And they seem to be very optimistic about it. So river cruising, I presume they're doing the same thing, ocean cruising, giving you credit for future cruises, et cetera.
Yes.
Is there any particular buzz that's different than what you're hearing about ocean-going vessels?
Well, the difference is that we're talking that they are not governed by the CDC. So the CDC really governs mostly ocean cruises, and you have to look at river cruising in 2 sets. We're looking, where you're looking on the Mississippi. There are obviously Vikings coming in, but American Queen has been sailing forever there, and as has American Cruise Line. And they've been doing some wonderful cruises on the Mississippi and also on the Pacific Northwest. Those are the 2 major areas you have American river cruising.
They've been doing them this year, James. This year they've been doing them.
Not until March. Yeah, until March they were doing
okay.
Well,
okay.
they had just started.
Okay.
Because they do lay up for a few months. They were all set, and they thought they would be one of the first to get out and get going. They haven't. They're still in a pause, like everybody else. Some are members of CLIA, like American Queen. They are members of CLIA, so they're kind of abiding by what CLIA, the ocean cruise lines, say. There's not really a sense of when they'll be back, but I suspect, given that during the winter they don't have river cruising anyway, for the most part, and so they'll start again in the spring, like everybody else. Now, in Europe, in Europe, it's very different. They're governed by EU rules, obviously. It's hard to get there right now as an American. You have to quarantine. And then every tiny little location, country, whatever, has its own rules. So right now you can't. I was talking to Rudy Schreiner, who's the head of AMA Waterways, and he said to me, "You can't even cruise in Hungary because they won't let you stop." That is a real damper on Danube cruises.
Since they often usually start in Budapest.
They often start in Budapest or reverse, and they end in Germany. Right now would be the season when they would. Well, we're pretty close to the season, I guess. Next month, when you start having all these Christmas market cruises.
Sure.
And that was a creation of the cruise industry, which used to really, dock and sit tight for about 3 months, and now they only sit tight for about 2 months. So right now, most people think they'll be back on the rivers of Europe if all goes well and COVID levels stay down, et cetera, probably by late March, April.
No Christmas market cruises.
No Christmas. Well, no, sorry, there's no Christmas. It's very sad, but there would be no Christmas market cruises. And if you have not done a Christmas market cruise, it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to see Europe, and really have a great time on the Danube or on the Rhine or the Rhone.
I did an AMA Waterways Christmas market cruise just last December with my 2 granddaughters from England, and just the 3 of us, and we had a great time. And I'm also thinking selfishly, I don't even know if you know this, but I started an upscale sort of European tour company, small groups, and our Christmas market tours, we have 3 of them this year, end of November, early December, are pretty much sold out. But I have a feeling the rate we're going,
No, it's not going to happen this year. You'll probably have to move them till next year. Again, AMA Waterways just announced that they will not cruise until 2021, and okay. I believe that Viking and all the other ones, Uniworld we talked about, Avalon, Tauk. There's a great list. There's really no bad river cruise. All the brands deliver a great product for the price, and it is a marvelous way to see Europe. But right now we're not going to be able to do that until Europe itself gets aligned on its own policies. So we're going to have to wait on that. Hopefully they'll come. They seem pretty confident that March, April, we'll start to see river cruising again. And again, oh, by the way, I'll amend that. There is river cruising going on. It's Mekong. Not the Mekong, actually in Europe, but not for Americans. There are Germans going on river cruising now. In fact, some of them are going on an AMA Waterways ship that was chartered. So they are going in their own countries. So interestingly, because there is ocean cruising too, I should backtrack a little bit and say there is ocean cruising in the Mediterranean right now, but sometimes it's just Italians going around Italy. There's several brands, MSC Cruises, which is a major brand, one of the largest privately owned cruise lines in the world, and then there's Costa Cruises. And then finally, there's AIDA, which is for the German market. And these are big ships, and they just all started within the last month, but only with a few vessels. So MSC has 2, Costa has 2. I think AIDA has at least 1. And so you got 5 ships cruising the Mediterranean, and it's a great sort of testing ground for what is to come, hopefully, here in the U.S. So you do have ocean cruising in the Mediterranean, and you do have some river cruising, but only like within Germany or within France and things like that. But I think Rudy told me that the other day that there's about 50 or 60 river ships on the waters right now. Wow. But we Americans, we can't go. So it's very discouraging in that sense. But yeah, I sort of have to amend all this because I'm thinking very American centric. Because we have in terms of COVID levels, we have some of the worst percentage wise in the world. So
as I often say, we're on the top of the don't invite them list. For
absolutely, we are the great plague here. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, but what's happening because of this, they're getting experience in how to do this. So AMA Waterways is getting great experience on health and safety protocols. They're really, they're figuring it out. And so when we can return as Americans and they let us in, it should be all fine. And I tell everybody who says, when this all started, there was a lot of publicity because of several ships that had outbreaks of COVID. I mean, if you look at it percentage wise, and if you look at the great totals, it was minuscule. And a lot of people saw that. And they just said, I don't want to because they got, people were stranded in their cabins and couldn't leave, and people got upset about that. And
no one knew how to handle it either.
No, and they didn't. I mean, the classic case was Diamond Princess in Yokohama, and then they actually brought the poor people back. And honestly, that was very early on. And I remember I was driving up through Rhode Island listening to a rock station, and the DJ was reporting on this. And they brought the passengers back, and they stuck them in Air Force Base or something in California to quarantine them. And then he editorialized. He said, "You wouldn't catch me dead on a cruise. I want to choose where I want to die." At that point, I knew we had a problem, Houston. It was, and that image has persisted. Even I was watching 60 Minutes the other day, and they're reporting on a Costa ship that had an outbreak in March. I mean, think about that. And we're seeing this story now.
Could have been a rerun. Could have been a rerun, maybe.
I don't think so.
No,
I think really? This was one they just redid, and I think it was, and so people see that and they think, oh, I don't want to cruise. Look at that. The fact is that cruising right now, believe it or not, is going to be they're going to make it safer than being in your apartment, Rudy. I mean, it's your new apartment. It's going to be safer than walking in your new apartment because you might trip over a bottle of wine.
Well, either that or if you put me on full picture, Michael, our engineer, you'll look over my shoulder and it looks white out there. You can see over my shoulder. That is snow, 7 inches of it here in Minnesota. 7 inches, I tell you, yesterday. Yes, I'd like to be on a cruise somewhere. Okay, let's broaden the conversation. And if there's some first-time people who are thinking about cruises, let me set this up. I think you and I would both agree on this, that different cruise lines and even different ships have different personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And you should know that before you book a cruise. But how do you find out what cruise is going to fit your age group, lifestyle, whatever it is that you judge makes a successful cruise for you?
Well, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't recommend right away that anybody interested in a cruise go find a good cruise selling travel advisor who can match you, the good ones can, with the right cruise, because it's very difficult to understand, the differences in the brands.
Right.
But, basically, if you want a kind of a big ship with lots of facilities and comfortable, beautiful, sometimes even up to luxury, when you're looking at Royal Caribbean or Carnival's, as the reputation is the fun ships, and Norwegian is a great product, they're all slightly different. But those are big ships with lots of restaurants, lots of options. Some of the ports of call are kind of, not as important. Indeed, they're not as important to the point where most of these large lines have their own private islands. And these are wonderful recreational islands where you can do almost anything. Royal Caribbean has a wonderful island with a water park I've actually, gone down the huge water slide. It's a lot of fun. Everyone, some are quieter. MSC Cruises has a private island that's a little more islandish, if you will. It's going to the beach. Every one of these has sort of their own created destination. So, you don't have to go to the ports in a way. That said, then there's a whole nother tier, sort of premium level, where smaller ships, more intimate, sometimes in fantastic cuisine. And so you have that option. And then you get into sort of small ship luxury. And these are believe me, the price points, between all these are not that big. So you can generally upgrade to the higher level. You say, well, geez, if I paid another $100 or something, I could get this, and usually you can. So
one of our affluent viewers, Celeste, says that she had. I'm booked on 4 cruises with Silver Sea in 2021. Now,
there you are. That's a high end line. That's a high end line.
Silver Sea is top of the heap. I know. I can't afford that. I'm on television.
Silver Sea, Seabourn, Crystal, Regent. Somebody's going to be upset that I lost one. And one of my personal favorites.
What do you think about Virgin's ocean-going vessels?
That's going to be an interesting venture. I was all set to go on it, and then they've delayed it a year, so they're not going to come out until the spring now. They're offering shorter cruises. They're really aiming at getting a younger client base, as per their kind of, their guest profile, and they're also doing shorter cruises. They're trying to break, a few years ago, Disney did this to try to get more families on. This is to try to get sort of younger people, more active, who may not have ever gone or even thought about going on a cruise, but they've heard about Richard Branson, they've heard about Virgin, and yeah, why don't I give that one a try? Because it is going to be different. Until I get on it, I won't know as much, but I certainly have seen all the material, and went to all the parties that they had almost a year ago now.
Virgin has not done an Atlantic crossing involving the United States yet?
Nope. Nothing.
I thought they started. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, I take that back. They did come over here, and they were all set to do all these events, and then things shut down. So okay. In fact, when I think back, and feels like ages ago. We were all set to go on board in New York, and that event got canceled, and they were going to then christen the ship down in Miami. This is the ship Scarlet Lady, but it's ironic is that they were going to introduce a second one in 2021, and now both ships are going to be introduced in 2021. I think they're going to be here most of the time. There was at one point they were going to go to the Mediterranean, but they have their own kind of. It's not a private island, but I believe it's a private beach club that they'll go to, and of course, they'll try to do things a little different, a little more edgy in terms of the Virgin way. I think you can get a tattoo, not a real one, on board. Things like that you can. They were really touting. So that is going to be I think that's going to be groundbreaking in the sense it's going to introduce a lot more people to cruising who might not have thought about cruising before, and I think that kind of brand may be probably easier for some people to book because, hey, look, I'm going to give this a shot. I've never gone on a cruise, but I want to do this. And so that I think that's going to be an important part. Thank you for reminding of that. There are other ones. Ritz-Carlton was going to introduce a very, very high-end luxury ship. The ship is pretty much built now. It was supposed to be in the water. I think it is totally built now. It was supposed to be in the water right now, but now they're delaying. I believe, I have not talked to them recently, but it'll again be next spring or something like that.
Sure.
But they have access to thousands of millions of names in the Marriott Bonvoy frequent stay list, and I think they're going to be aiming and trying to get people from that. So that, there's a lot of things. There's a new cruise line called Atlas Ocean Voyages that's going to launch next July or in the summer, that's going to be doing expedition cruises first in the Black Sea and places like that before they finally work their way all the way down to Antarctica. And they are actually backed by a sort of a Portuguese millionaire, billionaire who actually owns a lot of cruise ships on the Douro River in Portugal. But he's building 5 ships. So nobody's stopping. And then I just saw there's another, they're building ships. Some of the ships were delayed because of the yards were delayed because of COVID, but they're back online now. And it's amazing how many ships are coming out.
Wow. You talked about using a travel advisor, and you and I talked about this today before we came on air here, so to speak. Travel advisors are what we used to call travel agents. And why did they change from travel agent to travel advisors? They just more all encompassing, or
well, the thing is, the American Society of Travel Agents didn't have to change their logo because they're still called ASTA, right? So we're good with that.
Well, good.
There has been a trend to because travel agents were more like they were the agent maybe, or the agent of the consumer, or the agent of the supplier. I wrote a story years ago about that. And they also were transaction oriented. So, back in the 90s, they were booking tons of airline tickets and they were making a lot of money. Then they had to go back to the future and start booking vacations when the airlines cut and capped commissions. So that was the beginning or rebirth of a travel agent as a travel advisor. And a lot of major groups, including big groups like Virtuoso and Travel Leaders Network, and these are all big consortia, decided that we're going to rename ourselves. And then asked the American Society of Travel Advisors came out, and they 2 years ago now renamed themselves. And so now everything is advisors. Now, those of us who have been around for 30 years or whatever, it's hard sometimes not to say travel agents, but
yes, it is.
and I used to run a magazine called Travel Agent Magazine, and I founded 2 other magazines called Agent at Home and Vacation Agent. So boy, I had a connection to that agent name. But now generally it's like financial advisors. Okay, so you're not just a stock. Yeah, you're not just a stockbroker. You're a financial consultant or a financial advisor.
Well, one reason you talked about being able to choose a ship if you do consult a travel advisor, because they go on familiarity trips called FAM trips, and they book a lot of people who they hear back from, so they know what kind of people like what kind of ships. But they can also sometimes get you, if not a better price, some perks if they do a lot of business with particular cruise lines. Is that still an accurate?
Yeah, I think obviously you can get good prices directly, but I would say if you go to travel advisors, they're going to explain sort of what's apples and oranges, because you'll hear about a good price and then they'll come and say, look, yeah, that's great, but this is what you get, and I can do better than that. And I would urge anyone to go to a travel advisor first, or you can certainly go online and see what the pricing is to get an idea, but then go to a travel advisor and say, look, I see this line. And first of all, they may say, look, that's a great line, but after talking with you, I think this might be better for you. And also, by the way, I have a connection with this because my travel group, consortia or whatever, my host agency has a deal, has special perks. And so you're going to get all this extra stuff. So, sure, everybody wants to think, they can get a better price, but I would strongly urge everyone to go to a travel advisor, a good one, and do your research and find one that can actually get you some good perks and get you, maybe it's the same price, but you're going to get far more value out of it.
Right. Larry asks, can you recommend a Costa ship for a pretty artsy retired couple? Love opera, music, etc. We are not big party people.
Costa ship. That's interesting. I mean, the Costa ships are beautiful, but they are large ships. I don't know, and I'd have to look. I'd have it in front of me where you could see opera. I'm sure there are places to go into where they have side trips to Milan and other places to go see opera. But that's a tough one. I'm trying to think of they have a brand new one, and I'm blanking on it. But right now there are only two ships right now sailing. And I have to look back and see which ones they are. I would also urge them to take another look at another line called MSC Cruises.
Largely a European line, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not really. They're going to be having 4 ships sailing out of Miami, and they're really pushing hard. And they have a private island right off the coast right in the Bahamas. It's the closest private island to Florida. And they are really refocusing, or have been for a few years now, in the U.S. market. And they actually have, and maybe I have not sailed Costa recently, and I love them. They're a great product. But MSC will bring on opera singers for onboard entertainment. And they have, classical pianists and a lot of different entertainment that's a little different from some of the others. And so I certainly think that MSC and Costa are 2 good ones. And then, if you're really specialized and you want to have that thing, you might look into the premium lines and place other lines like Azamara and Oceania, and then you get up into the into the luxury lines, and all of those may even have some sort of opera focused cruises. But it's something I don't think the big ones have that kind of thing, but the smaller lines may be very specialized, a little more specialized, and they may help you with that.
Well, Robert tossed out the name Azamara before you did, but as a suggestion. But also, Larry, you might want to consider looking for particular theme cruises on other cruise lines. For example, I once crossed the Atlantic on the Queen Mary 2 from New York to Southampton in the UK, and it was a jazz cruise. Mm-hmm. And it was fabulous. I mean, it was around the clock, but all day there was jazz. There was jazz in the small venues, jazz in the big venues. It was a great trip if you like jazz. Now, I think they did maybe 3 or 4 that season, more than one. But if you occasionally look for an opera, just, I don't know, go to Google, type in opera cruise or jazz cruise or art cruise and see what comes up, because many of the lines will have themed cruises at times in order to attract folks.
Yeah, well, the other thing is that I wouldn't sell out. River cruises also have themed cruises.
That's true.
And they actually, and where are they going? In one of the most popular itineraries, they're going to Vienna. Okay?
Right.
So they have special nights of all opera and wonderful music. They bring on opera singers. They bring on classical musicians. So, and then you're talking about wine. They have wine cruises. They have beer cruises. They do a lot of special
and rock and roll cruises.
They have rock and roll cruises.
Oh, rock and roll.
Well, that's also a big ship thing. I know of some friends who do. They really do have a lot of. Like look at Holland America has all these wonderful music venues that you can go hear. There's a whole lounge called the Rolling Stone Lounge where you can hear all these old covers of all the rock you ever grew up with. So there's definitely a cruise for everyone. And again, I would urge everyone. Go to a travel advisor, say exactly what your interests are, and they'll start doing the research for you and figure out what's the best fit for you, because it's going to be, believe me, it's so hard to do it on your own.
Do you know if David brings up the Paul Gauguin, which runs out of French Polynesia? Do you know if it's operating?
Yes, it is. It had a brief canceled one cruise because of a COVID incident. Only one cruise, a poor young woman came down, She wasn't sick. She didn't have any symptoms, but she was tested as positive, and so did her mother. They brought everybody out, put them in quarantine. But then about a week later, they went back. They went back and started cruising again, and it's a wonderful cruise. I've done it. It's really a great way to see all of the great French Polynesian islands, Moorea, Bora Bora, of course, Huahine. They stop all those places, and it is, and that's all they do. That's the only cruise they do. They do a couple of specialty cruises out to Fiji and out to the Marquesas, which is part of French Polynesia. But it is, and again, they have onboard entertainment with French Polynesian dancers. They have music. And it is considered a luxury line. It's very much, but again, it's very much a specialty line. Every day there's a new excursion into an island, and I've done it a couple of times. I think it's a marvelous cruise.
So overall, you sound optimistic about the cruise business. I don't know if you want to say early 2021 yet, or spring of 2021.
I'd say ocean cruising will be back the beginning of 2021. But
Okay.
capacity wise, I think it's going to be a slow rollout for ocean and probably for river to a certain extent. You're not going to see all the ships reintroduced. You've already seen a lot of fleets be diminished. You know, several older ships and that were have left the fleet. Some were sold. A couple of Carnival ships were broken up for scrap. I think it was almost like 18 ships just out of Carnival Corporation, which is all their 9 brands of cruise lines. And so you won't see those older ships anymore. You are going to see newer ships that were scheduled to come out this year, and more will come out next year. You'll see new river ships. You'll see the pace hasn't stopped. The only thing that stopped was because the yards were shuttered for a few months, and now they're revved back. And so I think you will start to see it again. It won't be at levels that everybody wants to. We can't talk about 2020 right now. It's the lost year. Let's talk about 2019. And to get back to 2019 levels, I think we're going to have to wait till 2022.
And interestingly, the airlines got a big bailout from the federal government. They're hoping for another one if Congress ever gets around to doing that. But the cruise ships never got anything because they're flagged in other countries.
That is true. Even though most of them are here.
I said, well, you may park yourselves in Fort Lauderdale and Miami, but when it comes to certain rules and regulations and regarding salaries and all kinds of stuff, you don't want to live by the American rules, so you don't get no American dollar. So.
Yeah, so they really did. They've had to survive, and sadly, I know many of my friends who are in the cruise lines have been first furloughed and now laid off. It's been devastating to all these people. But the ones that remain are getting ready to come back. I think they got some good plans. The biggest thing is, just when are they going to do it? And we're all kind of, all right, let's go. Let's give it a shot here. You've done it in Europe. We've seen it be successful. It's time to start doing it. We're going to start to see a couple of lines start even this year. I think December you may see 1 or 2. Not a huge inventory. And as I warned earlier, a lot of these future cruise credits are going to be filling up the ships for next year anyway, with passengers who didn't get to go this year. But I'm pretty confident, and I got to qualify all of this because I think we all thought by now we would be at the end of this or well into the end of it. And we were ready to come back in the summer, and then it was the fall, and now it's the next year. In part, cruising is hampered because of the CDC no sail order. And again, we're all going to be waiting. It's just a few days away. The election is a few days away, and October 31 is actually a big date for cruising because that's when the CDC will either extend the no sail order or not, and then all bets are off. Now, the other thing quickly about it is that all of these cruise lines say it's going to take time to ramp up to get the crews back. They furloughed, and all of my friends who are on crew, they got all furloughed, and they went home to their home countries. A lot of them don't come from the United States, and so they all went home, or they got sent home, and so they're waiting. They have to bring everybody back bit by bit. So it's going to take a month or 2 to get everything back online for each ship. So that's another issue. And then you got to institute all the new health and safety protocols. It's a massive job. Plus, guess what? You got to talk with every single port that you go to make sure they're going to take you. To make sure that so it's a bit of a minefield, a maze that these guys are negotiating, and that's kind of what's holding everything up. I personally thought, hey, yeah, we should just get going back, but they all said no, we can't. So, but yes, next year, 2021, everything will be back, but not at the levels we're used to.
James Shillinglaw is an expert on cruises and cruising, among other things in the travel industry. James, thank you so much for giving us an up-to-date overview of the cruise business. What is your website for folks who would like to know more information about you? I think it's James Shillinglaw.
We can take a look. It is a password-protected site in the terms of that, but I would encourage you, if you're interested, it's called www.insidertravelreport.com. You can sign up as a supplier. We really go to mostly travel advisors. We go there about 75,000 we go to, and then we go to all the industry professionals and obviously travel suppliers, cruise lines and everything like that. But our main reason for being is to get information, great information, out to travel advisors about such things as what's going on in the cruise business. So please take a look at it. We do 10 to 15 to 20 stories a day, 5 days a week. And we always have a daily video, which is usually an interview that I do or my partner does with a major executive or with a travel advisor. So we're really the only ones that do that. So we're pretty proud of that. And I was just on a trip to New England, and I did 6 videos with general managers of wonderful boutique inns and hotels throughout New England. So that's, we don't just do cruise. We do it all. And then 2 days after this, I'm heading out to Vegas because there's a lot. We could have a whole nother show about what's going on in Vegas.
And we will.
And so that's another thing that we're doing. And then hopefully I'm going to get on this Sea Dream cruise, and I'll be reporting on that. And that's going to be really very interesting because it might be one of the first ships back in the Caribbean.
James, thank you so much. I see Anne-Maree Moon is joining us from Australia. I'm going to say goodbye to James. Take care. Thanks for spending time with us today, James.
Thank you, Rudy. Well, hopefully we'll see you sooner next time, all right?
I'd like that.
Okay. Have fun. We'll talk to you soon.
So I say goodbye to James and hello to Anne-Maree Moon, who's coming to us from the Sunshine Coast of Australia. What time is it there, Anne-Maree? Apparently I gave you the wrong time for the show because it's a little lighter than I would expect.
It's 5:40 and I'm actually in Brisbane, the capital city of Australia.
Wait a minute. It's 5:40 in the morning?
Yeah.
It's quite bright outside. Well, that's right.
Well, we don't have daylight saving in Queensland. So, yes, very bright. It's beautiful.
Well, nice to see you. I know when I invited you on through our mutual friend Kylie, last week we talked to a couple chefs in Rome. We talked to a writer in Paris and a third person somewhere else. A businessman in Thailand about what is going on in their countries. Now, I've got to start with the most incredible thing that sticks in my mind in the news from the last 2 or 3 weeks from Australia, which is some tourism official in your country said, nobody's getting into Australia till the end of 2021. Is that in cement? Is that firm or is that a guess?
Look, it was a politician who did say it. I know that there are an extraordinary number of tourism groups and airlines and aviation who are having conversations with the Australian government to see when we can open the borders. And there's talks every day about bubbles opening between Japan, New Zealand, a lot of the Asia Pacific region, Singapore, those sorts of areas. So as you would know, it changes on a daily basis, but we have our fingers crossed that time frame is somewhat shortened. I certainly can't wait to go the other way as well.
You lived in America for a while, and I'm sure you're going to be watching the debate tonight because you're a big political junkie, I understand, from our mutual friend.
Oh, well, I haven't lived there, but I feel like I have. Yes, I'm a massive political junkie. I love American politics. It fascinates me. I am in the middle of reading Education of an Idealist, which I'm just really loving. And I decided whilst your election was on that I would sit and watch my all-time favourite show, The West Wing, for the 8th time. So I think I'm on series 2, episode 9 at the moment. So the room, all of them, I just love them. They're great.
Anne-Maree, I want to go back to this bubble thing. You're Australia talking with Japan, with New Zealand. The United States is talking with the UK.
Yep.
But so look, if I can get into Japan as an American, and you may not know the answer to this, but if I can get into Japan as an American, and people from Japan are allowed to go to Australia, can I hop a flight to Australia where they look at my American passport and go, well, no, the bubble doesn't include the guy with the American passport?
No. I think the thing to remember is Australia has, as an island, has always been very protective. Right. And our customs and quarantine is some of the strictest in the world. And we've been able to keep disease away because agriculture and rural is just such an important part of our economy. Sure. So we do have really strict entry and exit platforms here, and it is to protect the nature and the agriculture and everything on the island. So I think you will find that our customs officers are right on the ball, and they will be looking at where you've travelled before, where you've come from, and
Whether I live in Japan, for example. Yeah,
That's exactly right. So, even we've seen the state border control and the way that that's been managed, and people turned away from getting in from the New South Wales to Queensland border to protect the fact that we've been able to really keep the spread of COVID within this state very, very low.
So are you all wearing masks?
No, not at all. We've got 2 active cases at the moment, if that, I think. There was a period of time when Victoria bubbled a little bit more that we did see more masks. But yeah, look, I see people with masks, and at the airports they're wearing them. But no, we are. We're very good at social distancing. We're very good at being very mindful of the washing of hands. But in public transport, yes, I do see people with masks, and I see them in the shops. But and we're a very warm and friendly people, and we will tell each other, "Hey guys, just remember." So it's become a very clear way of life. And you do find that I go to the markets every Saturday morning, and the stall owners are very, very clear. They'll say, would you just mind queuing at your 1.5? So it's a collective response. Yeah, okay. It's a really collective response.
What about restaurants and entertainment venues? Full capacity?
No. So we just had a reduction, and it's now one person per 4 square meters inside and 1.2 square meters outside. So they're sitting anywhere between 50 to 70% capacity. But so much of our dining is al fresco.
That's 6 feet out, which is what it is in the States. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but keep in mind, we live in a very outdoor lifestyle. So a lot of our restaurants are outdoor. I was out at one last night, and it was really busy. It was great to see. People are loving being out.
Can you see that white stuff behind me there, Anne-Maree?
I can.
That is 7 inches of snow yesterday in St. Paul, Minnesota, USA.
Well, I was sitting outside under the moon in a very balmy, what would be about a 26 degree. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It was beautiful, a lovely breeze blowing, and you can see behind me a beautiful day that we're going to have today. Yeah, we're heading into summer, which is great for us as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because your winters aren't bad either. But ever since I moved to Minnesota, friends who live in warm climates, Miami or Southern California, are always, including my engineer on the show, Michael, was kind enough to send me a picture of he and his wife with the top down in a convertible with a palm tree in the background in Palm Springs, California. Everything's like I get a kick out of that because I live here with 7 inches of snow. I don't get a kick out of it, Anne-Maree.
Well, I was up in North America last year in January, and I got caught in the polar vortex in Toronto at -32. So I have experienced it, and I love it. It's a contrast. I think we love having contrasts in our lives.
I don't have any contrast for the next 6 months in Minnesota.
Very true.
There's no contrast. Okay, so how, as I've said on these webcasts, in fact, I said it earlier to our previous guests, Americans are on the top of the don't invite them list of all the countries in the world. What are Australians? I mean, what do Australians think about Americans and us someday swarming over your country again?
Look, I haven't heard anything that would make me think that they're not going to be very welcome. At the moment, I've got 12 tourism operators taking part in Tourism Australian's marketplace, North America, with numerous travel agents up in your region. So our tourism products and apparently the demand from Australian tourism operators to engage with the American travel agents was overwhelming. So
what are you telling them? What are you telling them?
Oh, gosh. Keeping them updated.
We can't.
Look, we're keeping them updated on our operators and the fact that our businesses are still, they're back online. They're taking domestic tourists out to the islands. I've got a lot of new businesses in my region, and so we're telling them all about our new products. I've got new hotels being built. We're opening a cruise terminal. So just keeping them up to date, and we're a relationship. We're a relationship business, so it's as much about keeping those great partnerships and relationships going.
Okay, but when they say, great, Ms. Australia or Mr. Australia tourism official, when can we come? What do you guys say? Watch
this space. We'll keep in touch. We'll get you down as soon as we can. I mean, it's heartbreaking for me. The reason I was up earlier this year was, or last year, gosh, the time's flying, was we had just launched the San Francisco Brisbane route, and we were launching in April the Chicago Brisbane route, which Qantas will say was one of the most successful sales routes they'd ever launched. It was going.
Or welcome to the country at the end of 2021. That politician was just saying that. That has not been written down anywhere. Is that? Am I understanding that correctly?
It's been reported in the news, but I think they keep. I think, like any government, governments want to get economies kick-started as soon as possible, and we all know that as an export, tourism is incredibly important to all of those countries that rely on it so heavily. And I think it's a watching brief. We all know that's what 12 months away. Who knows what's going to happen within 12 months? I think we're all hoping in the industry that was a.
It's 14 months away, and I'm counting them. But I suppose a vaccine would make a big difference. And
yeah.
I mean, if you were a betting woman, do you think Americans will be in there in the middle of next year? What do you think?
I'd love to think so. I think we might. I think we'd be pushing back into the second half. And that's actually when I think Australia's the most beautiful, that September, October period as spring comes in, and it's just a glorious time.
You are such a great tourist official. That's right. You're not missing anything. Third quarter, come on over and see us. Well, so right now.
I need to reciprocate. I need to, get on a plane and come back and sell our beautiful destination.
We're sort of friends. We're generally friendly people too, yes.
Absolutely.
But so right now, there is no, as you would say, travel bubble between you and New Zealand or you and Japan?
No. There was, so initially there was a fairly strong directive or a thinking of our federal government that we wouldn't open Australia to New Zealand until the whole country could open. So, we could open every state. I haven't heard much more on that at the moment. So I think once again, and New Zealand's just come out of an election, obviously with Jacinda Ardern going ahead. So I think there's just a bit of, and we're going through state elections in 2 weeks, next weekend as well. So I think once we get over that bump, hopefully the conversations will recommence and we'll see that come forward. I'd like to think early next year. And I know there's a lot of conversations going on with the aviation carriers between both countries as well.
Do I remember correctly? I mean, in the beginning of this era of COVID-19, there were actually restrictions in Australia of people from one state visiting another. Is that right?
There's still restrictions, yeah. So, yes, there are, yeah. So only certain areas of New South Wales can come into Brisbane, into Queensland rather. So Sydney at the moment is still considered a hotspot. Victoria has been closed for the moment, but Adelaide, South Australia can come in, ACT,
so Western
Australia. Yes, absolutely.
Can you go to Sydney for dinner?
No, not without quarantining or special permissions, etc.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought you were wide open now in Australia.
No, not quite wide open. I think in the next, because we've really in the last few weeks again, really the number of cases has decreased dramatically in those regions that were considered a little bit, but when we talk those numbers, they're very, very different to numbers in other parts of the world. But I think, like New Zealand, Australia really has managed it very, very well. But, with cities that have got big, wide open spaces. And as I said, people have taken a really collective responsibility. There's a lot of pride in the way that we as individuals have managed it and looked after each other as well.
Well, we certainly envy you, and I thank you, Anne-Maree Moon, for joining us and getting up so early. It was very kind of you to do that.
If you talk to Carly, she'll tell you I'm an absolute early bird. This is nothing for me. I'm about to walk out the door to the office. I love early mornings. My brain works best then, so it was no problem at all, Rick. It was absolutely
well, thank you. It's nice to get a snapshot of Australia, and I hope we can be part of more than a bubble soon.
And I hope you can see just outside my window, we're in jacaranda season, so we have these beautiful.
Right, the color of the flowers behind me, actually, almost.
Yeah, exactly right. So in October, just the whole city comes alive with these beautiful purple flowers. I've actually got a whole park of purple flowers just down that side. So we're in the middle of jacaranda, and they're exactly the color of your beautiful I'm just trying to work out what they are.
Oh, it starts with an A and it's about 4 syllables. I can never remember what they are.
You're right.
Anne-Maree Moon in Brisbane is what's your website for Brisbane?
Visit brisbane.com.au.
Simple
Easy.
enough. Anne-Maree
Very
Moon,
simple.
thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Have a lovely evening.
Winter, and you have a lovely summer.
We will indeed. Okay.
How does that
Nice
work?
to talk.
It's a big
Now I have
word.
to work out how to get out of the room.
I don't know. You'll see if there's a hang. There's
I'll
a
collapse.
see there's a red. Oh, she's gone. Just wanted to give you a couple of news items. If you don't get my newsletter, they're in there. Where did they go? I had it up here. I just had it here a minute ago. Hang on. Got to bring it back up. Let's see. Well, first I wanted to tell you about. Here it is. Sorry, had it on the screen a minute ago, and for some reason it disappeared. I watched that vote on Proposition 22 in California when it comes up on Election Day. You know, the California General Assembly told some of the gig economy companies like Uber and Lyft that they had to start considering their drivers as employees, which meant they had to give them vacation time and overtime and all kinds of things to conform to state law for employees. And Uber and Lyft and a bunch of other companies like DoorDash and Postmates and Instacart have spent about $186 million lobbying for the past few months and advertising all over California to vote against this state legislature bill. They're afraid that not only are they going to have to lay off 2/3 of their workers in California, but that other states will bring the smackdown on them because other states have been trying to get them to call their workers employees as well. So that's a very big vote on Proposition 22. It may determine whether you can ever call an Uber or Lyft again. So watch for that. That's coming on Election Day. And if you go back to Argentina, you may remember years ago, well, Argentina's had so many economic difficulties, but they have high inflation, and Argentines are once again trying to change all their pesos into U.S. dollars. In fact, I don't think you can take more than $200 US out of your bank account at a time now in Argentina. Anyway, what that means is if you go down to Buenos Aires, which you're not supposed to be going to right now, but you may be able to soon, you will find two exchange rates. One is the official exchange rate, which I think is 82 pesos per dollar. But you may be approached on busy streets in Buenos Aires for sure by black marketers who will give you 167 pesos for that dollar, twice what a bank will. Now it's strictly illegal, but this has been going on time and time again. But be careful. I mean, if you need pesos and you'll get twice as many pesos from a black market person, use your judgment. If you get nailed, it probably won't be pretty. And Michael Traeger, who is the engineer for my webcasts for now and forever, I hope. He's Mr. Well, not just Mr. Vegas, Mr. Gambling. He runs a newsletter and every other week webcast under the moniker Travel Zork, Zork.com. And I occasionally lift things from him from my newsletter, which I did this week. He says the Cosmopolitan is turning its November 18th, its pool. November 18th? It was just 4 days ago. It's happened. It's turned its Boulevard pool into a 4,200 square foot ice rink complete with s'mores by the fire pit. But take your credit card with you. You've got to book if you want to do the fire pit s'mores thing. You got to book and make a reservation. You get it for 2.5 hours, and it can cost as much as $275. But as I said, hey, it's Vegas. Live a little. So that's about it for this week. Next week, I think we're going to have a friend of mine who is a French woman, but she lives in New York, and she's a model. She does lingerie and bathing suit model. I want to talk to her about traveling as a model because they generally travel all over the world. We'll set aside the COVID era for now. But join me next week when we'll talk travel again in an entirely different way. Meanwhile, thanks for joining me today. I usually like to say travel safely. I'll still say it. I wish we could travel a little more widely. Anyway, thanks for tuning in today. It'll be on YouTube in about a day or so if you want to send this webcast to friends, and you can watch some of the past ones there as well. And if you go to Instagram, I post quite a bit on Instagram. Just look for my name, Rudy Maxa or Savtrav, and join me there. I think I'm over 3,000 people, which is not a lot for Instagram, but For me, it's a lot, but nudge me up a little. We got to get to 4,000. Anyway, take care. See you next week.